So in this video, I'd like to just talk about China a bit. So on the channel, I mentioned a few months ago that I was visiting China because my wife's family lives here. And yeah, I was going to come visit them, and let's just say I learned some things from them. But a few months passed and we decided to come back, and we are now more or less deciding to live in China for the foreseeable future. So I feel like I should share. People seem to be underestimating China and the economy here. So recently, a few days ago, China announced what a lot of people are calling like a stimulus bazooka or ICBM, like a really big stimulus package. In truth, it's not really that big of a stimulus package on the ground here. It doesn't really affect common people too much. It seems the main reason Chinese stocks are going up so much is because they have a lending facility with basically central bank where stocks as well as other investment firms can more or less borrow at very cheap interest rates using collateral and then buy back their shares or purchase shares in different companies on the A stock exchange or I believe even the Hong Kong stock exchange. So this is causing stocks to jump a lot, but I don't really believe it will have that much of a material impact on the Chinese economy unless they do further stimulus measures. But with that being said, I'd like to get into why I don't really believe they need these stimulus measures. And I think people have been really underestimating the economy here, the government here, and the overall situation here. And more so, like, before this run-up, I said I'd be a little less public with my investments, but I'll disclose this. I had about 25% of my overall net worth in Chinese equities. This is because I believed them to be extraordinarily cheap, as I outlined in some of the investment videos I posted earlier, as well as I had some first-hand experience in the country, which really influenced my opinion on the direction of the country, the leadership of the country, and the general economy in the country. As well as, of course, I wanted some personal exposure to the country as my wife's family lived here. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So to start off, I like to talk about infrastructure. So everyone knows China has like a high-speed rail network and like they have very good infrastructure. They build these huge mega projects of infrastructure, big bridges that stretch across mountains, all sorts of nonsense like this. They did that, they do that, it is what it is. However, people don't really talk about how the road system works here, just how efficient the transportation system is and how cheap it is, as well as how most of the government infrastructure, the government built and owned infrastructure is not actually 100% free. So this is one issue in the US. You have lots of upkeep and the government doesn't really take care of the roads very well, especially the city governments, because it's free. So they have no real incentive to keep it nice and they just honestly don't care that much. In China, it's different. Whenever you go and we took a call from Guangzhou to a city north, like Qingyan, I believe it's called, and it's, I don't know, like a 45-minute, 50-minute ride, and there's multiple different ways up there. Two of the ways that we went, we didn't go the third way, because there and back. Well, anyhow, both of those ways had plenty of tunnels, very nice, but more so what I noticed is the entire road was pristine condition. I looked up when a lot of these were built, and it wasn't like within the last few years. It's in Guangzhou, Guangdong. Like it's a very developed area of China that's been developed for quite some time. It's in an area that has quite a bit of truck traffic at night, but the road is in pristine condition. There's not traffic during the day. It's nice. And I kind of wondered, like, why is this? And the government there, here in China, to go on that road, this inner city road, there is a free way. Like there is one way that's free. These other two ways you have to pay. And like this, it's not like a private company built this road. It's part of the national highway system. But because it's a faster way and to keep up the maintenance of it, they charge a fee. It's not expensive, it's a few dollars. But my point is, the infrastructure in China, it's not only exceptional, but the government is very smart in the way they built it and manage it. In the sense of, they are upkeeping this infrastructure. They are continuing to have it in pristine condition. They are having it with such a little barrier to entry. If you really want it, you can pay for it. Common people can even pay for it and afford it. However, it discourages unnecessary travel, to say the least. You're not going to just like, I want to go eat at a restaurant at that other city. Let me drive over there. Because this has literally happened many times among family in the US. Because, it's free. Just pay for gas, a few bucks there, a few bucks back, waste a couple hours of your life. It's not a big deal. But when you add an extra little few dollars for the toll, it just discourages people from this, quite frankly, dumb behavior. So the infrastructure is really good, but they're also managing it well. That's just the road system. If you move on to the high-speed train is, it's better than people make it out to be. You can basically take a high-speed train anywhere. It's not quite as fast as flying in terms of once you're in the air. However, if you take into account the time it takes you getting to the airport and actually going through the security and dealing with all the airport stuff in most countries, basically if your flight would be less than about 4 hours, the high-speed train is faster. And yeah, it's just much, much better. It's very cheap, it's very efficient, it runs on time. Every 20-30 minutes there's a train going where you want it to go. It's very safe and clean. It's fantastic. Moving on to the airport situation. All the airports, I haven't checked on this, but I believe they're all owned by the government here. Or the cities, local government, I don't know. But they're very efficient. They usually have metro connected to them. If they don't have metro, they always have a bus system connected to it that'll allow you to go to any tour sites, and as well as key parts of different cities in the surrounding area. And it's very cheap. The plane service is exceptional as well. I mean, they are private companies. However, they offer exceptional service. You get on board, it's already cool. The seats are comfortable, all that sort of stuff. The people aren't behaving loud or rude. That's just general China things. People are quite respectful. But you get, we flew from Guangzhou over here to Yunnan, and I think it was $110 for a flight, something around these lines. And we got one free check bag up to 30, 40 kilo, carry-on bag 10 kilo, whatever it is, personal item, the basic stuff like that. But they also gave us a snack, a meal, and some special dessert because it was kind of near the holiday time. So this is something that would be on a very luxury flight in the US, but this is just, apparently it's commonplace here in China. So yeah, unless you're taking one of the Hong Kong budget airlines that are flying to Hong Kong only, all the flights, they seem to treat you really well, and the prices are quite affordable. So the infrastructure here is really good for getting around the country, and it's better than any other country anywhere I've ever been to or ever seen. You can hear about it, you can see it in videos, but until you really experience it and just how efficient it is. So I feel like I need to talk about the highway system in the city. So when we city in Guangzhou, whenever you're taking the highway, or freeway, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't feel like you're going through a city. You can go through the heart of a city and it doesn't feel like you're in the city. And you don't have any noise pollution caused by the highway, other than in the very, very city center, next to all the huge, huge skyscrapers. Because they put this big row of trees around it, and that's the same on the national highway out to the other cities. There are these big rows of trees and nature right next to it, so it provides a barrier between the cars and the people living around the highway. So you don't really get any noise pollution, and it feels much less miserable driving a car in China, let's just say that. But anyhow, let's move on to the next point. The next thing would be just quite how organized it is. Like I mentioned regarding the train station and stuff, going to the high-speed train, it's incredibly organized. Even if you don't speak Chinese, you can go there, you can kind of figure it out, there'll be other foreigners lining up at one place, you line up there, you give them some money, say where you want to go, or show them if you don't want to say it, whatever. And you get your ticket, it's very straightforward, you get up, there's no real delays, security doesn't take a long time, and and that's the other thing. Security for the airports, what I noticed is they take security more seriously, but you get in and out of security much faster. So going through the airport in Guangzhou, I got pat down. They searched the bags that were carry on. They search the check-in bags with you there as well, kind of through a scanner, in case you put any batteries or whatever in it. When you're going in with your check-in bags, they'll check for batteries. You must remove them separately. Like they're very cautious about things and they're very organized, but it only takes like more organized than going through like the TSA in the US. But the process only takes maybe 5-10 minutes at most in China. So like they're much more efficient in pretty much every regard. And this is something that really just allows everything here to run more smoothly, saves you time, saves you hassle. It's fantastic. The next point would really be the quality of life I want to talk about. So the quality of life here, like a lot of people have talked like negatively about 5-minute cities or 15-minute cities, whatever they're called, being introduced around the world. Well, they've been in China for a long time. Some of my wife's family actually lives in them. And when you actually go to one of these places, it's very different than the reality. Or, I mean, it's very different than what people say. So here it's just a normal thing. It's just you have basically mixed use areas where you have apartments and condos and stuff, and then just 2-3 minute walk from that, right outside the gate of the condo complex, you have little shops, all like petite bourgeoisie type of shops, little mom and pop shops. And then you have usually a big market or and a few supermarkets spread around there. As well as you have a school, a couple schools usually. You have walking paths, cycling paths, all of that. The goal of these cities here seem to be to actually make life better for people. So there are walking paths, there are cycling paths, there are parks, and they really do put nature in around the critical infrastructure like highways and stuff to make it feel less miserable. So like the quality of life is higher in this regard, but then also just the amount of access to goods you have. So let's just move on to access to goods. That's enough for quality of life. So access to goods. You can order, it's one of the things I liked in the US before when I lived there. You could order almost anything online. Well, in China, it's even better than that. You can really order anything online and it'll be delivered within a couple of days and it's going to be free to be delivered. No membership, none of that Amazon Prime garbage. No, you just have a normal account, free delivery. So it's either delivered to your door or just a few hundred meters away at one of the delivery shops. So you can order anything. I'm talking like I have like dates from Iran. I have gluten-free buckwheat noodles. I have all sorts of nuts. I got chia seeds. I got basically everything you could imagine. They sell online here. And of course clothes, electronics, everything, and the prices are very, very low relative to other countries because most of this stuff is produced here or is traded from countries that are otherwise sanctioned by a lot of the world. So like if I buy Iranian dates, let's just say it's harder to find these products, Iranian dates in other countries because Iran has some export restrictions imposed by other countries, US, Europe and stuff. You can still find their dates over there, but it's more complicated. They usually have to like ship it to the UAE first and then they ship it out to the US, something like this. But regardless, basically, you get the products directly from Iran, directly from Russia, directly from Mongolia, directly from Kazakhstan, places like this. And so you're getting really cheap products that are actually pretty high quality. Same, the Chinese made goods are extremely high quality. Like it's not like the cheap garbage you get in the US. These are cheap garbage because people are trying to squeeze as much money, profit margin out after shipping them over and paying Amazon warehouse fees and all this crap. Here they don't have all those fees. So the products you get for a price are actually exceptionally high quality. So you have exceptional access to goods. That's what I'm trying to say here. And I'm just saying all this to give you kind of a picture of how life is kind of like and give you an idea that like things are going quite well here. So I'd like to briefly talk about the government. I know it's a quite controversial topic on Western media, YouTube, all of this, but I feel like I just need to reiterate or like say, like to be clear, the government here isn't stupid. They're not incompetent. I believe most governments around the world are incompetent. Like they don't really think long term. They don't understand what they're doing to their own people. They don't think geopolitically in a macro way of the economy. They don't consider these things. The government here in China does. They think long term. They understand what they're doing. They're not just some bureaucrats. These people, the ones at the top are some of the smartest people in the world, in my opinion. They plan things, they understand what they're doing, they have goals, they have targets, and they continue to meet them. Like I just want to stress that because I would not underestimate this country or its leadership, especially after living here and dealing with some of the government, going to like register at local police station and just seeing how society works, how safe it is, how everything is operated, and how most businesses you interact with are petit bourgeois, just little capitalist sort of businesses, mom and pops, and but most of the big things are not government ran, but government owned or part owned. So like one vehicle company in Guangzhou is called like Guangzhou Automotive. They are, I forget how much, but I think it's like 80% government owned. They produce one of the best electric cars and one of the best cars I've ever got into, period. Probably 40-50% of all cars I got into in Guangzhou through like apps like Didi, like basically Chinese Uber, were this car. The car's sold for like less than $20,000. And it's as nice or nicer, in my opinion, than even Teslas. You can buy the stock. It's publicly traded, Guangzhou Automotive on Hong Kong Stock Exchange, a tiny bit. But my point is, the government here, they're not dumb. They do own they do have state-run enterprises. They do own a lot of big companies or part own a lot of them. They own a lot of the infrastructure. But like, this isn't a place where the government loses money on these things. They only lose money on these state-owned enterprises if it's part of their target, such as the solar industry. Some of the government entities have lost money producing solar panels and other related equipment. However, this was to roll out solar panels, green energy, and get basically an overwhelming dominance on the market share, which they achieved. They achieved 80% or more market dominance on the solar industry. I believe same with the battery industry for like electric cars. So my point is, the government here is, these are serious people. Whenever the government here says something, they actually intend to do it, and it's a stable government. It's one of the things I like here. You don't have to think about politics. It's none of this dumb flip-flopping you have in the US, where neither politician has your interest at heart. They're all just talking garbage, basically. Just making stuff up to buy votes or try to get you to vote for them or pick on the other side, whatever, just tribalism. You don't have any of that here. You have serious people who intend to make the country better, stronger, and more efficient. And when you actually see it firsthand and experience it, it screams competence. And it's just something I think y'all should fully understand. Don't underestimate China in this regard. It stretches through the economy and all factors. It goes into most of the businesses. Like, people here are serious business people and they understand what they're doing. They got rid of the corruption here a long time ago. You don't have super high corruption. So yeah, I believe the US has higher corruption. But anyhow, let's move on. So the next thing I'd like to say related to government is China really thinks long term. The businesses here think long term. Like, I wouldn't be underestimating what a lot of these Chinese companies can do. They have government support, blah, 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 some of them. But most of these businesses think very long term and have big aspirations. The government also, they think very long term. That's why they built the high-speed rail system. It largely lost money for a long time. Some of it's profitable now, but it largely lost money for a long time. But it wasn't about making money on the rail system to start. It was about allowing the infrastructure to transport more people, allow infrastructure to transport large distances in a short amount of time using electricity and not imported jet fuel. It was about having different national security goals met, as well as having potential military use infrastructure that runs off electricity that can be produced domestically through such through such energy sources as nuclear and coal and other domestic produced energy. Like, the government thinks multiple steps ahead, very long term, and they're competent. Like, they're not going to, like, everything here is a long term game, from the businesses, the publicly traded businesses, the state-owned enterprises, the government, the infrastructure. Everything is very long-term here. And when you understand the goals and the outlook and what people are actually doing here, it's very clear the economy here is very resilient and very strong. And most of what people talk about is just nonsense, quite frankly. So with all that being said, I'd like to talk briefly about the Chinese economy and Chinese stocks. I prefaced this with all of that stuff about how China is, because it's very important to understand before you invest in Chinese stocks. Chinese stocks, to me, are still undervalued even after this huge run out, but I'm not buying more because I have quite a bit of my net worth in it. However, it's important to understand the economy here. It's not like the US. You don't have this stock market downturn where stocks are down like 80%, mostly in China, still down 80% from the highs just a few years ago. You don't have this downturn and everyone's like dying on the street, protesting, becoming homeless, poor, whatever. No, that's not happening here at all. Only a few percent of the population even bothers owning stocks or has more than 5-10% of their net worth in stocks. It's not really a big deal here. Like, the economy isn't as unstable here. These consumers relatively fine here. Everything's operating fine. You don't see tons of closed businesses here. If you go to any of the like, the only thing you'll see is like some of the newly built areas, which has always been the case here. Some of the newly built areas that were just built within the last 1-2 years aren't completely filled with businesses yet. And all the apartments aren't completely filled with people yet. But anything that's more than 1-2 years old is filled in, has people, all of that. It's like the economy here is fine. The stocks, in my opinion, kind of reflect that. The only issue going on in China right now is mild deflation, and this is caused by, well, they're producing so many products here, and like the example with electric cars right now. They're producing electric cars that you can buy for a few $1,000s. Literally a few $1,000s if you live here. They're not exported. The exported cars, like BYD Sequel, is one of the cheaper ones that's exported, are like $10,000 here. But you can buy way cheaper ones here if you don't mind going to one of the smaller brands like Wuxing or something like this, I believe it is. But this is causing deflation in the economy where people are saving more money and they don't really have to you don't have to spend much to live here. So it allows people to save money, get wealthier, not be in as much debt like the US. So the economy is much more resilient. And basically what I'm trying to say is if you look at these stocks, their revenue, their profit, it's really not that bad of a situation. And when you understand the actual way the Chinese economy works and this long-term thinking, Chinese stocks aren't uninvestable. Like, the government here, they don't go around taking people's property or investments or anything like this. They don't seize stuff without paying you an extraordinary amount above what it's worth. To me, Chinese stocks aren't uninvestable. They're one of the best places to be in the world right now in terms of investments. The only thing I'd say is I don't really trust the US in terms of, it seems to be getting in a particularly desperate spot, and I don't trust their policies. They basically stole hundreds of millions of dollars from American people who were invested in Russian stocks and assets by prohibiting them to sell and sanctioning a lot of the entities that hold them. So the Russian entities did not take it from Americans, but America took it from its own citizens and prohibited them from basically cashing out and receiving the funds. So the only concern I have regarding Chinese stocks is, if you're American or European, it should be, you should, in my opinion, invest in them through the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And the reason why for this is, well, Hong Kong Stock Exchange is part of China, and China will have no interest in taking your funds, just like Russia. It's just they might be restricted by the US or Europe or whatever else. So just keep that in mind. Own these stocks in Hong Kong, in China, and then if something ever happens, you'll be able to cash it out there in RMB or Hong Kong dollars and buy Bitcoin or whatever else it might be to transact abroad or buy gold, whatever, and enjoy. It's that simple. Yeah, but with that being said, I guess that'll be all for today. This video is really just to really help people understand the situation in China and help people understand that you really shouldn't be underestimating this country or its government, and that, well, these stocks are a reasonable valuation, but don't just go in buying because they're cheap or anything like this. Really understand the country you're going to be investing in, its leadership, its policies. Things aren't how media says it is in China. It's much better. And yeah, with that being said, that's going to be all for your video. If you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns regarding China or anything else, feel free to leave those down below. But with that being said, bye-bye.